What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back. Let's talk 154. Has been one of my favorite divisions since I created this channel. Why? Because for the most part, most of the best fights happen. You know, outside of a few, some guys moved up at this point. I've always loved this division, you know, and it continues to thrive. I like the back and forths. I like the losses that a lot of these guys have. Is one of my favorite divisions because none of these guys can't really seem to keep going on without taking an L at some point. You know what I mean? Just the passing of all of the belts is it just shows you that like the guys at this division is really getting it on, as opposed to like 160, for example. You know what I mean? So let's talk about this division and where do we go from here. But I want to start off by talking about Tszyu and Brian Mendoza. All right, now I did the live commentary video, and you guys already know my thoughts. If you did see that, if you were here Saturday night, you know, I pretty much gave you the commentary, gave you a post-fight review. It was a great fight. It was definitely one of my personal favorite fights of the year, probably like a top 10 fight for me, you know, and it was everything that I wanted it to be. You know, I knew going into this fight that Tim was going to actually be tested in this fight as opposed to the last few that he's had. Okay. Just stylistically, I thought that Mendoza brought everything that I've seen him do in previous fights, but even better. Even with this loss, I still think Brian Mendoza looked the best. It was the best version of him in this fight, even with the loss. All right, but Tim proved that he's legit. He keeps proving time and time again that he's legitimate. You know, being going back and forth, turning into a dogfight with Brian Mendoza, who's proven to be a puncher at this point. You know, knocking out the undefeated Sebastian Fundora, something that Erickson Lubin could not do. You know, and just going back and forth, going to war. No one got knocked down in that fight, which is crazy. That's the craziest part. The amount of damage these two were doing, no one actually got knocked down. You know, and it was just, the fight was everything I needed it to be, you know, and I can't wait to see the both of them in the ring in the future, in the near future. Brian Mendoza has proven to be a major player in the division, and if he's in top form, he's dangerous for anybody, you know, and I would like to go down some of the lists of some of the guys that I would love to see. I don't know where Brian Castano is at. That's the one question. He's been missing since the loss to Charlo. I hope he can come back, because he's been a tough fighter at 154 leading up to those fights. I mean, most people think he won the first fight with Jamel. So even with the loss, and I know he got stopped, the second fight was still very competitive. And I would still like to see him come out at some point and battle against a Tszyu, or battle against an Erickson Lubin, or battle against a Brian Mendoza. I don't think he should just leave and skip out of the game because of that loss, you know. So hopefully he comes back, you know, because his resume is legitimate. You know, he's been in there with tough fighters, and I would like to see him bounce back, you know, possibly fighting a Tony Harrison on his first one back or something like that. You know, I don't even know what Tony is doing right now, but I would like to see a Brian Castano come back. But moving forward, I guess all of the confusion at this point is just knowing what Charlo was going to do. All right. He is still holding on to three of the titles. Tszyu is a WBO champ now. That title is gone. So Jamel is no longer undisputed at 154. But if he does come back, and I do think there's a possibility, it's 50-50. Why I say he won't come back is because at 160, there's really nothing there. You know what I mean? At 160, I would think, as far as his body, I can see him going to 160 and just not returning to 154. And whoever wants to fight him at 154 will have to move up to fight him at 160. You know what I mean? Coming off a layoff at 154, you're in your 30s, and then now you go up to 168 just to drop back down to 154 is going to be difficult. You know what I mean? And I think that could put you at a disadvantage as far as how you feel in that fight. You might actually be drained if you remain at 154. But he does still hold 3 titles. And if he does come back down, there are a few options. Obviously, Terrence Crawford wants a piece of him. Crawford has called him out, called Canelo out at 168. But if Jamel was coming back down, if he has the titles, Crawford obviously wants to fight. You know, I've spoken about this before. Crawford obviously is going to have his rematch with Errol Spence, depending on where that fight would land next. I don't know. You know, we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with the PBC. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go to Amazon Prime, or are they going to go to a DAZN? What network is going to take them in? And if they can't find a new home, where are all these fighters going to fight? You know, or where are all these PBC fighters going to go, or the Showtime fighters going to go? We have to wait and see. But Terrence Crawford can get a fight depending on what happens with him and Errol Spence, you know, as far as the rematch clause when it comes to that. But a fighter that we forget to bring up, Jermell Charlo actually has a mandatory, and a mandatory that is ahead of Tszyu, okay? Bakhram Murtazaliev has been his mandatory since right after, with the IBF, right after the first Castano fight. And I forgot about this when talking about this division and which direction is going to go. I totally forgot about this guy. Because remember, after the first draw with Brian Castano and Jermell Charlo, within that week, we heard that Murtazaliev was going to be the IBF Mando. And we was like, damn, how are we going to get undisputed if this guy Bakhram is going to be in the way of getting undisputed, because he is the IBF Mando. Now, we know that Tszyu was already in the picture at this time, but this guy was ahead of him. And you look at this where I've seen him fight. I remember going back and watching him fight then. Russian fighter, very powerful, has no one on his resume that is going to, no names on his resume that's going to stand out. Okay? He looks good. He looks powerful. He can box. But he hasn't fought anyone in the division. You know? And when it comes to that, my problem is I like a lot of fighters. This goes for like 175, for example. I've always brought up this example. We have two guys that are clearly the best, right? Which is Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. Those guys are two, number 1 and 2, right? 1A, 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 1B, whatever way you want to put it. They're holding all of the titles. And what they're doing now is just facing Mandos and facing top fighters. And a lot of those top fighters are not even fighting each other. You know what I mean? And obviously the WBC is blocking that fight. You know, even some of the promoters may be blocking that fight as well, depending on, you know, Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, you know, whatever. But then you got all these guys that's right under beneath them that keep getting shots at the title, but they're not fighting each other. Anthony Yards, Gilberto Ramirez when he was there, Callum Smith. It's just a long list of guys that are getting shots at the title, but they're not fighting the other top guys, the top contenders. And I kind of have a problem with Bakhram because I'm not saying that he's not credible. I'm not saying that he doesn't belong there. But there are other guys in the division that has done more, got bigger wins, like guys like Jesus Ramos. Yes, he lost to Lubin recently, but he has a win over Brian Mendoza. He has a win over Joey Spencer. What did Joey Spencer, a guy that I always questioned his ability, you know, when it came to stepping up. He's been a prospect for so many years. They put him against Ramos. He gets destroyed. But that could be the same outcome if Bakhram is the face of Jermell Charlo or Tszyu. You know, yes, he feels he's being ducked. But the real reality is he being ducked? Why? Because he's knocking a lot of guys out? Well, there's a lot of fighters that's knocking a lot of guys out, but they're knocking out better fighters. Like a Sebastian Fundora knocking out what's it called? An Anderson Lubin, you know, or like a Tszyu knocking out of a Tony Harrison. You know what I mean? These guys are knocking out former champions or other top contenders. Bakhram is just in the mix. He's highly ranked, but he has no names. No one that's been in there with any of the top guys, you know? But he is a factor, and he can't be ignored, and he can't be slept on. I just feel before he gets a title shot, he should be facing another top contender in this division. Whether it's Brian Mendoza, Sebastian Fundora, or Erickson Lubin, something like that. All right? While we're waiting to find out, let's just say Jamel does not return and he's just out of the picture at this point. What do we do from there? Where do we go? Well, Tszyu, he's been active for a few times this year, right? Was able to stay busy. Even though he didn't get a shot with Jamel, he was staying busy. He picked up 2 wins from, a WBC interim champion. And he picked up a win against a former champion and Tony Harrison. So he had a really, really good year. Most people are looking at him as the top guy at 154 next to Charlo. So what do you do at this point? Well, let's take the Lubin fight. Let's take the Lubin fight. If Jamel doesn't come back, what's up with Bakhram? Bakhram will either be elevated as a champion or he'll have to fight someone for that vacant title. Let's get some of these fights going. Between Tszyu, Erickson Lubin, Brian Mendoza, Bakhram Murtazaliev, you got Magomed Kurbanov still around. You got Jesus Ramos still around. He lost, but a lot of these guys lost. You got fights to be made. Where's Brian Mendoza? Put him in the picture. You know what I mean? I don't know what order this goes, but I think some of these fights in 2024 should involve, with or without Jamel Charlo, Tszyu, Bakhram, Lubin, Mendoza, Ramos. Let's get it going for Noah. Brian Castano if he makes a return. We got to get something going, But I would like Jamel to stay, but I doubt it because going up to 168, coming back out all the way to 154, I don't know. The only reason why I think it could happen, because I think any fight at 160, you got, unless they were able to bring Triple G back out, maybe get a fight with Jaime Munguia, who's looking to be at 168 at this point. Chris Eubank is already doing his thing with Conor Benn. Janet Bake is not a name, and I can't see Jamel taking that fight. So what are we going to do at 160? Most of the guys at 160 don't even fight each other. So the only reason why I think there's a chance of him coming back down to 154 is because at the very least, you got 2 fights that's going to make you money. Flying out to Australia to fight Tszyu, whether it's for all of the titles or not, it's going to make you a lot of money. They can make that a stadium fight. It would be a big fight. Or you can wait to after Crawford and Spence rematch and fight Terrence Crawford. You know what I mean? If you choose to stick around, there's a lot more money there. And you're going to make money fighting Bud Crawford. And you're going to make money fighting Tszyu. And plus, titles will still be on the line. You know what I mean? Also, just to put this out there, and I just thought about this at 160, if he does choose to stay at 160, you got Danny Garcia allegedly fighting Arislandi Lara. Those are the rumors. They were supposed to fight before. Maybe he fights the winner of that fight at 160 if he does want to do the 160 thing, But outside of that, that's the only realistic fight I see happening at this point. All right. Carlos Adames, again, another opponent at 160 that it's not going to be a bigger fight than Crawford. And if you're looking to cash out and make a big fight, Go at Tszyu. Go at Terrence Crawford. You know, Bakhram, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do with that fight because he is the mandatory. Is he going to vacate that title in order to go after Tszyu? I think if you're going to make the move back down to 154, fight Tszyu. Yeah, people are going to say, oh, you ducked Bakhram. So what? Tszyu is more proven. And he's if not as dangerous, he's more dangerous. He's proven to be dangerous. Plus, you'll make more money. It'll be a well-known fight. Two well-known fighters. So I think if he goes to 154 and if he can't get Crawford right away, go to Tszyu. If he stays at 160, most likely he's going to get Lara, Danny Garcia winner, something like that. Maybe Carlos Adames, something like that. You know, but we'll see. I mean, he is still holding the WBC strap, you know, so he can make some kind of move to fight for a title right away. We just got to wait and see. But I don't think Janabek is even an option. So I'm not going to even entertain that. All right. But anyway, just wanted to break down the division. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up if you like the content. And I'm out of here. Peace.